Hello there, bestie, and welcome to the Empower and Evolve podcast. I am your host, Kat. I will be your guide on this transformative journey. I'm a hypnotherapist and a mindset coach that is here to reconnect you to your most empowered and liberated self. This podcast is a space where we will explore the vast landscapes of mindset, career, business, cyclical living, energetics, spirituality, and beyond. I invite you to join me as we traverse these expansive topics, igniting the spark of liberation within you and setting the stage for an empowering evolution into your most authentic self. Without further ado, it's time to plunge into today's episode. Hi, bestie. This is not your average podcast episode that you're about to listen to. This is actually an Instagram live where I was being interviewed by my friend Jessie Wayne on my journey through change and how I manage pivots and surrender to them and embrace them, and how I've made best friends with change, basically. And I wasn't going to take this interview and put it on the podcast, but it was so good. And I dropped some massive gold nuggets that I just had to get the file from Jessie Wayne and be like, yeah, no, this goes on the podcast. This is too good. Because let's be honest, so many of us have difficulty with change. You know, change is hard. We resist it. We kind of cling onto whatever is happening in our lives, not willing to let go, to surrender, and to pivot. And in this podcast episode, I share about the personal pivots I have been through, mainly through my business, and how I have navigated them and how I have actually surrendered to them. The other cool thing that you'll find in this episode is you'll perfectly meet my two personalities that my clients are very familiar with. And these two personalities are the feminine space holder that is there to support you, is soft and just lovely. And then in the final 10 minutes, you meet football coach Kat. She's sassy. She tells you how it is. She's direct. She channels this Eastern European heritage to the max. I know you're going to get so much from this podcast episode. I hope you enjoy.
Hello everyone, we are going live to have a conversation about embracing change. Now for my goal getters, my high achievers, my determined dreamers, there is a space between where you are now and where you want to be in life, the goals that you want to achieve in life, and just your most desired life. And that space is divided by a bridge. And that bridge, in my opinion, is where the change happens. The answer is change, and it's listening to your intuition. It's really just going with the flow and taking all of the opportunities that feel aligned to you so you can come into alignment and you can really meet that next level you who is living your most desired already. And I am bringing on the beautiful Kat Tennyberg, who is a friend of mine that I haven't spoken to in a while, who has actually had a few changes in her life. She has pivoted in certain ways, and I'm so excited to hear her story. I'm so excited for you to hear her story and get some advice, because it is going to help you on your journey to achieving your goals. So let's bring in the beautiful Kat. Oh, there we go. Hello. Hello.
I'm so excited.
I'm accepting and it's not working, but we're here. Hello. I'm so excited to chat to you, Kat.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be chatting about this topic as well.
Yeah, well, so for those who don't know, I've known you for quite some time now, back in the yachting days, back in the Juice Plus days. That's where I first not met you, because we've never actually met, but we started to connect. And then we ended up doing an entire series on my podcast, a menstrual health series, which is really cool. But I know since then you've also recently pivoted, and I don't know the ins and outs. So I'm super excited just to hear little bits about what's been going on for you in the last couple of years? What changes have you made? I know this was something that happened before, but you're not living in the country that you were born in and all of that. So let's speak about who you are now. Who's the cat now?
Oh my goodness, I always struggle with this one actually because yeah, the title that I currently go by is mindset coach and integrative practitioner. And I've kind of settled on that because it's so hard to put a label on what I do because of the vast modalities that I have under my belt and that I utilize and how I help clients. So that's the title I currently go by.
Yeah. Incredible. And so
Yeah.
so knowing you back then, essentially like a conversation that I want to have is around your story from, where you were to where you are now. I know there's been a lot of change that's gone on, and I was just speaking to you before. I feel like sometimes change can be quite a heavy word when people are like, oh, there's going to be change in my life. And look, change can be small, it can be big, it can be pivots, it can look so different. So curious to know just what your journey looked like with the slight pivots in your careers and the changes, and yeah, how you really followed your intuition to fall into the alignment that you are in today.
I love that question so much. And I know we were chatting before we hopped on about change, and people often see it as a bad word, but ultimately, if we boil it down to the truth, there's only a couple things that are certain in our life. A, death. We're all going to die eventually. And B, change. Because there's always going to be things that change. So instead of looking at change at this like negative thing, change is part of our natural cycle of growth and evolution. So the more that we resist change, the more it will persist and push us to actually change, right? So I believe that the sooner we can really embrace change and surrender to it and allow life to guide us, the more we'll be fulfilled, the happier we will become, the more we will find things that are in alignment with us. And I love that you brought the word surrender in because that's been a big word for me this year. It's actually, I started the year with two words, and they were growth and ascension. Or the wealth and ascension. I was like, it wasn't growth, wealth and ascension. And I was like, yeah, this is gonna be the year. And now my life has forced me to change my words, and they are surrender and pivot.
Oh, perfect. That's perfect.
So it's been a big year for me personally, but I'll kind of go back a little bit further to share of my story. And like you mentioned, when we first met, I was with a company called Juice Plus. I still have my office with them. I still take the products. I still sell the products in a way, but I don't build the business anymore. And back then I was so gung-ho with it. Had this big team. At one point I had over 200 people in my team. It was wild. It was my full-time income back then. And I see a couple people I know watching. Hey Leonie, hey Julie. And back then, like, that was it. Like, I was like, yeah, I'm a professional network marketer. This is the best industry in the world. I'm gonna like do this for the rest of my life. And I still believe that it's a beautiful industry for the average person to get some knowledge about business and put themselves out there and gain a footing in the entrepreneurial space. However, for me, it came to a point where it was no longer feeling good. I had built this really big team, 200 people, and there were a few people in my team who really treated me as if I was their personal employee even. Like, I had to be available all the time. If I wasn't available, I would get these super long voice notes tearing me down, telling me how I was a horrible person and how I would let people down. And it just came to the point where I couldn't take it any longer. I just couldn't be someone's, excuse my language, but someone's bitch, especially, just doing everything for everyone.
And I was like, you know what? This just doesn't feel right anymore. And it felt really, really scary to leave that in the past because it had been 5 years of me identifying with this business, growing it, having a full-time income, and to kind of step back and be like, okay, what am I going to do now? Was really scary. It was really, really scary to make that change and to make that pivot and to make that leap. And I was really uncertain about it. I was working with a coach back then, and she helped me through it. She asked me some really good quality questions around, of maybe it's just a challenge that I had to overcome. But the truth was that it had been feeling off for a little while, and just that treatment from that particular person was like the straw that broke the camel's back.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, what am I going to do now? And I had already done some menstrual cycle work. Like I'd released a virtual course around it. So that was kind of like, oh, I really enjoy that. Like I want to do more of this. I want to teach women about their menstrual cycle and their bodies and just really get to know themselves and tap into their femininity. So I was like, okay, I'm going to do some of this. I decided to do a certification around becoming a menstrual cycle coach. But just before I decided to take a step back from all of this was I had actually done a human design reader training. So then I was like, okay, sweet. I'm going to focus on human design. I'm going to do my certification for menstrual cycle coaching. And I'm also a yoga teacher. So I was like, these are going to be my things that I focus on. I'm just going to go with it. And it was so scary because I wasn't sure if it was going to provide me the income that I needed. And I was just like, okay, I'm just going to lean in and trust. It was really that first moment of surrender and trusting and just there's actually a theory that I like to teach on money mindset, and that we all have a thermostat and we have like a minimum and a maximum that we are attracting into our lives and that we're comfortable with. So I really had to kind of trust that my minimum thermostat would just work out, and that somehow, even in these changes, money would make its way to me, however it would be. And it's always worked for me. Like it's always, every time I've had a pivot, there's been a minimum that I seem to kind of attract that's gonna, take just care of it. Just like it manages. And then, you evolve and you grow and that minimum changes. Like what my minimum used to be is not my minimum anymore. Anyway, I digress.
I love it. I love it.
So then that was the first big pivot and I was really enjoying it. That was back in like September 2022. So I was really running with that, creating some courses around menstrual cycle work, doing human design readings, teaching yoga. It was great. It was really, really fun. And then it came to 2023 and I started to dive, getting closer towards finishing my menstrual cycle coaching certification. And I was like, okay, I feel like I want to somehow combine all of this work, the menstrual cycle work, the human design readings, some of the knowledge that I have from yoga. And I just want to find something that if I take a training, I'm going to be able to bring it all together. So that was the time when I then signed up for my integrated NLP training. My intention was literally to just, do it so that I could bring all my other gifts together. And boy, oh boy, did that training change my life. I had experienced NLP through the coach that I was working with. So we'd used a lot of the techniques on me and they were really helpful, especially some of the timeline therapy work. And I was amazed at the training. In 7 days, I just unraveled because I did an intensive. So it was like 15-hour days for 7 days. It was wild.
Wild, you're right. I don't even know. I take my hat off to you for that. It's wild because the amount that you learn in NLP and crazy.
It was crazy, but it was so beautiful because literally I remember entering the training as one person and 7 days later emerging as someone else. It was just so crazy that in such a short period of time you could experience that kind of change. So then I was like, okay, that was really cool. You know what? I actually want to do one-on-one breakthrough coaching, breakthrough mindset life coaching. I really want to give it a try and see what happens. And at that point, the other things had kind of dropped and my yoga was coming off and I actually ended up getting a job for a month. I didn't know it was going to be a month, but my money had dropped. So I was like, okay, I'm going to get a job whilst I worked on getting this coaching business up. I think I lasted in that job 5 weeks. And since I've decided that I'm actually unemployable because I just love working for myself and I love the freedom.
Yeah.
I needed it at that
Yeah.
point. I needed that job to kind of give my nervous system the security of like money is going to come in. Anyway, that same month that I got that job, that same month that I decided to become a coach, I had my first 13K sales month, and I was like, what? Like, what is this for real? Is this for real? And it was just this moment of, going into that training with one intention, thinking I was going to bring everything together, emerging as a different person, being changed, and deciding to pivot my business again and offer one-on-one coaching as the like main source of income for me, not knowing whether people were going to buy, where I would get the clients from, does anyone even like want to learn from me? But I leaned in. I did it anyway. This is something I've learned to do over the years, and I actually believe that Juice Plus helped me with it. It's like feeling the fear and doing it anyway.
Yeah.
And just being like, okay, this feels so scary. It feels so uncertain, but I'm just going to do it.
Yeah.
I'm just going to trust. I'm going to surrender, and it's going to be okay. And it ended up being okay again. So that was 2023. Wow, it's just incredible to think back. It was my first six-figure year in business. It was incredible. I launched like a mastermind for business. It was amazing. I had so much fun. I felt invincible. And then something started to happen kind of December, January. It was actually after I'd done my master practitioner training, which was 15 days of 15 hours. So even more crazier than my NLP training. So I did that training and I guess again emerged a different person, but wasn't at that point willing to fully accept that yet.
Yeah.
So then I was like noticing that somewhere along the line over the last few months, and this kind of all came to me in January, February this year, these realizations is I had lost myself along the way. So I had listened to the advice of other people and, I truly believe, and I teach this to my clients, that we all have our own unique success formula, and what works for one person may not work for us. However, somehow I had, in my own mind, made this decision that I had to do things exactly like other people were doing them.
Yeah.
And it's nothing against these people or my mentors or, it was just me making that decision somehow in my mind. And I lost myself along the way doing business and things in a way that didn't feel aligned.
Yeah.
And it actually showed. Like, I had consistent 10K and above sales months basically since May 2023. January, I had a $2,000 sales month.
Yeah.
That was like, what the fuck has happened? So it made me really come back to myself and be like, what is going on? What is happening here? Where is the misalignment? And I started to dive deep into myself and my personal work again. And that's when I realized that, somewhere along the line, I lost myself. I started to do business and offer things that I thought I had to because I thought that it was the next step in my evolution, but it wasn't actually true to me. So it was this really humbling moment. And I remember watching this one masterclass that talked about a bit of a different concept of seasons in business, kind of taken through the alchemy lens of Egypt and all those things. And it was kind of like, yeah, if you get in this mode where it's all becomes about the success and the shiny objects, and you let yourself get distracted by that, instead of getting to reap the true rewards of your labor, you're going to end up in a winter of your business that's going to really force you to look at yourself. And I remember watching this masterclass and being like, wow, like I wasn't consciously aware that this was what's going on, but I was like, this is exactly what happened. I let the shiny object of the success and the growth kind of pull me back and be like, oh my God, I've lost myself along the way. So then in February, I had launched the second round of my mastermind where initially I had 7 people in. I had 0 people sign up for it. So another big humbling moment. I was like, okay, it's really, really time to relook at what I do, how I offer my services, how I pivot myself. And it was around that time when I was reading a book called The Surrender Experiment by Michael A. Singer. And I needed that book at that time because I was in such a dark night of the soul with everything that was going on. And I'm actually like sharing some of the things here that I've never even shared before, so that's great.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, it just kind of kept coming out. So I read that book, and it was a lot about what I took from it is that instead of forcing ourselves and our goals, what if we were to surrender to what the world puts into our shoe, like in front of us, and just to follow that thread. So I was like, oh, and a thread that had been put in front of me for a little while at that point was hypnosis and kind of in-person work more. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna lean into this. And oh, I'm getting a ringing in my ear. So hey, spirit, I guess I'm meant to share this. Um, it was really like, okay, I'm going to surrender. I'm going to follow. I decided to start to offer one-on-one, like somatic support sessions here in the town I live in, as well as virtually, leaning into the hypnosis, leaning into energy work, and still doing the mindset coaching as well, because that is still to this day, like, I love it so much. I love working with one-on-one clients. I love the breakthroughs. I love it. But I knew that there was this other part of me that I had been suppressing that was wanting to come out. And it was the part of being a healer and healing people and helping them through different modalities. So it's breathwork, hypno, energy healing. So I've been leaning into that. And yeah, the moment I kind of surrendered to that, again, my business started to grow. Last month was another 17K sales month. You know, it's like, it's that confirmation, because I do believe that in business, we go through those ups and downs and these seasons. And ultimately, they teach us something, because in the winter, when we do experience the hardships of business, we can take a moment and be like, well, where am I out of alignment? Where do I need to refine? What do I need to change? Who do I need to become? What do I need to let go of? And yeah, that's been kind of the journey of how I've ended up on the title of mindset coach and integrative practitioner, because of all the different work I do.
I love it. And the whole reason that I wanted to get you on here and speak about your story is because I knew that this was going to be a permission slip for others, knowing that you're a coach and you guide people through this type of thing as well. This was going to be a permission slip for others to, well, first of all, see that where they potentially might not be in alignment, like you say, something just felt off, and it had felt first when we're going back to Juice Plus, that person that was speaking to you horribly, something had felt off, it had felt off for a while, and you decided enough is enough, you made a pivot, you came into alignment, and then something happened here, and then you're like, oh, actually, or I think it was more opportunities of going into coaching with menstrual coaching, NLP, having those skills, and you came into alignment again. So it really goes to show that alignment doesn't necessarily mean the same thing forever. It's like, how can we constantly be moving with the flow and with our alignment? And a lot of that is making changes in life and shifts, and getting outside of your comfort zone when sometimes it is really embracing the uncertainty of a change, but knowing that you will feel it yourself coming into alignment as you make those shifts. And I love that you spoke about feeling the fear and doing it anyway, because what I can see with your journey is that no place was unaligned. There was no specific career or a job that you were in, seeing as we're talking about that was unaligned. It's that the way that I like to say it is that, and you've probably heard this before, I hear people say it, but like when you are coming into alignment or manifesting in your dream life or your desired life or version of yourself, it's like that cake recipe, the cake being the end goal, whatever the goal might be, your most fulfilled life, happy relationships, happy career, whatever that might be at different stages. but you are committing to that journey of getting that. So it's like, okay, I'm not just committing to the end goal, I'm committing to the journey. So it's like, I need the ingredients for the cake. I need the instructions of which order to make the cake. I'm not going to put the eggs in a pan and then put it in the oven and bring it out and put the flour in, right? So I feel like it's just been that beautiful because you have embraced that uncertainty and you've had so much trust and surrender going through it. And obviously learning the times when surrender is more needed than others. It's like you've really like done this recipe in a good order to now come into your new alignment. And that's why I think it's just that permission slip for people to hear through your story that if things aren't feeling completely in alignment for them right now, there's options. It's not just a one-way state. It's not a one-way trip to living. And I think that what people don't want to accept or admit, people think that everything is permanent. Like nothing is permanent. Nothing is permanent. And it's like beautiful to move through the different changes because you get to experience even more out of life, experience these skills. Like same, I did NLP course. I didn't even know this existed, this NLP thing. I didn't even know it existed like 5 years ago. So you just get to experience the most and more out of life, which is really cool. There was something else that I wanted to say with the story, but it'll come back. I know it will. Also, just wondering, like for the people as well, like through your story, do you have advice for someone who knows that this is their winter season, like that you speak about, or is really looking to embrace some change, or know that there's like a leap for them to take, but they're just a little bit nervous right now and they need that piece of advice or that push, that something to get them to take that leap and come into their alignment? Like, I know that you speak about intuition, like, anyway, I'm going all over the place. What is your advice for people that are in this winter season that really want to make that change?
There's two pieces of advice. First of all, well, I guess there's three pieces. First of all is embrace it. Know that this is actually part of the journey, and it's in those darkest moments of the soul, it's in those winter months where you actually build the skills necessary to endure that roller coaster, that continuous season. Because just because you're going through winter once doesn't mean that you'll never do it again. You will come into winter again. So it's embrace that time, sit with it, accept it, instead of forcing it to like be over sooner rather than later. Just sit with it. What is the gift of that season? What can you learn? Which moves into tip two, is really actually coming into your intuition and starting to really be with yourself and sit with yourself and do your inner work and be like, where am I out of alignment? What is this teaching me? Who am I? What do I want to do? What lights me up? What are my unique gifts? Who do I want to help? Who do I want to become? What skills do I need to move through these? Like really asking yourself some really big questions and trusting your intuition and really surrendering to that and being like, well, what are some things that are happening around me that I've been ignoring or pushing to the side that are actually guideposts? So for me, it was that hypnosis work, for instance, and it was just this one little segue into doing something a little bit differently that then allowed me to come into alignment, because there was this part of me that was being unfulfilled. So it's really trusting these little nuggets that the world is sending you. And like you said, nothing is permanent. So just because you were A for so long and you identified as A doesn't mean that you can't become B, because maybe everything you learned whilst you were A, you need to become B. So trusting those little nuggets, sitting with yourself, being in your intuition. And the third piece, which I personally think is the most pivotal piece, is having someone in your corner. I'm a big fan of having a coach and having someone who has navigated what you're going through and can support you and potentially help you speed up that process of learning, that can be there to ask you those right questions, to hold you, to guide you to your truth, and remind you that it's okay, and that this this is just temporary.
Yeah, 100%. I love all of that. I think it's the self-inquiry that you say, and then the self-honesty and the time, giving yourself that time. I think this is something that I'm moving into as well, like more is that giving yourself that time to be honest with yourself. It's so funny that you speak about this because all of your tips come into the story that I'm about to say. Small story. I have had a coach for a long time, very long time. I don't know, years, and it doesn't matter. Like long-term mentorship is everything for me. But as much as as long as I've had my coach, we even went into a call on Monday night for me, and it was like more into mindset because she's in mindset business. And she sits there and we start just doing a life audit, an easy life audit, things that I do with my clients, right? And then she goes, do you realize you sat there and you just lied to yourself about everything? Well, not as harsh as that, but we have rapport, we've been together for a long time. And she was like reflecting back to me where I was focusing on only being positive, even though there's negatives that I'm feeling in my life. And I was like, well, shit. So it's like 100% that self-inquiry and that being honest with yourself and having that coach that can be someone in your corner to really support you and guide you with that self-honesty and self-inquiry, and also to have those questions to ask you is so important. And like I say, I'm a mindset coach myself, but there's times when it just slips past, and that comes back to the other part of giving yourself that time to inquire and to be present. So really cool. All of your advice really tied into something that was really apparent for me just the other day, which is really, really cool. And I think it's also, this is the thing that I remembered before, was speaking about coaches. And it's like you can have someone in your corner, and this is something that I'm so strong about with my clients, as well as like making sure that they know there is no one way that is the right way. If something doesn't feel in alignment for you that I say or I explore, everything is exploring options and exploring different ways. You don't have to do anything that I say. And I really want that message to be out there more, because it's somewhere I got super stuck in that at one part. It's like, I feel like this is the only way and I have to do it. And now I'm like, why? Like, how did I let it get so loud for me, which is perfect. And it's all the lessons that we get to learn along the way, right? So it's the message for you out there if you're listening as well. It's just like, there's no one way that's the right way, and that there's a lot of ways that we can come into your own alignment for whatever it is that is your goal that you're going towards. But me too, I love having a coach so much. It's just, it's just the best to have someone in your corner to just guide you through it and support you through whatever it is that you're going through, right?
Yeah.
So I love that so much.
I think it's so important, and I love that you said long-term mentorship, because I think it's so crucial. I've actually recently rehired, like when I was in that dark night of the soul, I rehired my first coach because I knew that she had gone through the same thing. So I've been working on and off with her since 2020. Like there's been little pieces where I've like stopped working with her and I've maybe worked with someone else or done some other courses, but like she knows me in and out, and she is someone that I look up to in the way of like, not the like pedestaling, but like, oh, you're just a couple of steps ahead of me and I love what you're doing. I love like what you believe in. I love what you like, how you define success, and I love learning from you. And just that long-term mentorship, same like you said with your coach, having someone that knows you in and out and who has been with you through the pivots, like that is worth so much. And it's actually also something else that I have now shifted through everything I've learned this year, is I've shifted my one-on-one offerings. Like I no longer offer just like a couple, like 3-month breakthrough package. Like I actually am shifting towards long-term mentorship, because I want people to have that kind of support. And it's so beautiful to see, like, we just touched the surface in the first few months. It's in the long term that you really get into the depths. And it's so easy as well. I've noticed with a lot of my, not a lot of, but some of my one-on-one clients I had last year, that they're just like the breakthrough package. A couple months later, like they feel amazing. They have this incredible results, but because nothing else changes in their environment, a couple months later, they find themselves exactly where they were before.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's something you can avoid with long-term mentorship, because you have someone who reminds you, like, hey, you're slipping into old patterns. Hey, this is not you. So
Yeah.
it's, long-term mentorship is the bee's knees.
Yeah, 100%. And so I know that you speak a lot about intuition, and I know that you've been speaking about your story and following your intuition. Like, what sort of advice do you have for someone who struggles to either listen to their intuition or really understand what the nudges are for a yes or a no, or a go for it or a don't go for it? Like, how did you do that through your journey?
This has been years in the making. It actually started for me with menstrual cycle work and learning about my cycle and learning about the phases and learning in my menstruation to sit in stillness and be with myself and do some deep journaling. And that's when I first started to really tap into my intuition, was through that work. And I believe that the biggest piece of really learning to tap into your intuition is allowing yourself to be in stillness and just like being in nature, or just being at home with, just your journal and just free writing and just letting the pen flow and allowing whatever to come up to come up. And that's initially how it started for me. Now it's pretty easy. I get to tap into my intuition fairly easily. Like, I sit in stillness. Maybe I'll do some breath work or a meditation beforehand. And I just sit there and I ask myself questions, and I get the answers. Tarot cards, oracle cards are great for this as well when you first start out. And it's just this muscle that you build. The more you use it and the more you actually act on it. So this is something I teach my clients. Like, often, like, if we're feeling like frazzled and overwhelmed, I actually had this recently in my mastermind. Someone was feeling really like their nervous system was in that fight and flight and just like, ah. And I was like, I want you to take 3 deep breaths and ask yourself, what do you need right now? And the person said, the answer that came to me is, I need to feed myself. I was like, great, then go and do that. And then she just replied, but first I'll cuddle my dog. I was like, no, get the fuck out. Go and make yourself food. Because the problem is, if you don't act on the nudges you get, even if it's something like, I could have been like, oh yeah, go cuddle your dog, that's really nice. No, like, your intuition told you, go feed yourself. Go freaking feed yourself. Go and act on it.
Yeah.
Because the more you actually start to do the things your intuition tells you to do, the stronger it will get. The more you like get the nudge, but you don't act on it, the more your intuition's like, well, fuck you, you're not listening to me. So this is like football coach Cat coming out. Like, before you got feminine Cat, now it's like, fuck you, go and do the thing.
And then she was like, I need to be fed. And then he was like, but I'm going to cuddle my dog. And you're like, fuck you, no, go feed yourself. It's just so funny. Oh my god.
Actually, these 2 parts exist in me, and my clients know both of them.
I love that so much. That's so much. At the beginning, you're like, come on, you're like, this is my story and surrender, and now fuck you. I love that so much. That's the best. That's the best.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's the truth.
Yeah.
That's how you get to connect to your intuition. You find stillness, you self-inquire, and then you take action on it.
Yeah.
That's like the key. You got to take action on it so that your body and your intuition knows that you trust it, and you create that relationship.
100%. Can you see the sunset that's coming in? It's just making me orange.
Beautiful.
I also think, like, that whole word that you said just then, self-trust, as well, is like, when you do the things that you say you will do, you will build self-trust. It's when you listen to your intuition and you do the things that your intuition's like gives you those nudges to do, then you will build self-trust on that, and then you'll be guided by your intuition rather than having this conflict of, no, but I want to go cuddle my dog, but yeah, we can do that after I've been fed. I actually know exactly what your client means, because it's like, I feel those, I start getting like moody, or like a little bit like, I'm like, oh, why am I feeling irritable right now? And I'm like, I haven't eaten for so long. I need to go eat. It's like actual hangry. But 100%, just go and do the thing to help you to like move with your intuition, and then you know that you are going to be guided to all of these beautiful places. It starts with the small things. It starts with the small nudges that your intuition gives you, and I think that that's beautiful. I love that so much.
It's such a good story, because Yeah, at first I was catching myself being like, oh yeah, that sounds nice. Like I love cuddling my dog. And I was like, no, this is not what she's paying me for.
Yeah, you've got to keep them to their best standards, hold them to a higher standard, 100%. That's exactly what a coach is there for you, to hold you to a high standard when you do slip out of those patterns that you say. So I love that so much. Yeah, incredible. Kat, this has been such an incredible conversation. I've really enjoyed talking to you about all of this. It's been cool. We've had conversations about like Juice Plus. We've had conversations about menstrual learning. I've had my own human design reading with you. Now we're coming into like the NLP, the hypnosis, the mindset side of you. It's just been so great. I've been such an honor to be here through some of the pivots that you've been through as well, which is really cool. And I just appreciate you being vulnerable, sharing your story, giving us your advice, and helping others just have that permission slip to pivot and change in their life when it feels right to move into alignment.
Thank you so much for having me on and for giving me the space to talk. Because when you reached out and that was the topic you want to talk about, I was like, yes, bring it on.
I love that. And I didn't know that pivot and surrender is your words now. I didn't know that at the stage. It's just I'd seen your recent shifts and your content and things, and I'm like, oh, this would be an incredible conversation. So it just worked perfectly.
Yep, that's it.
Thank you so much. We'll talk soon. Bye.
Bye.